if you watch a C-section, it's just the same things. Like if people watch C-sections and then watch circumcision, stuff like that, like these birth traumas, then I think they would understand how awful it is for the child. You see the baby is in immense distress.
Hello, POTS viewers. I am interviewing Taylor Durden on YouTube and Instagram. How are you doing today?
I'm good, man. How about you? How you doing, man?
Good. So tell me, what do you think of the medical system and the procedure for birthing in hospitals?
I think it's designed to be destructive at this point. I feel like a lot of it is geared to get as much out of people as possible, because it's counterproductive. It goes against gravity. So you're going to get more C-sections, and you're going to get a bunch of women that don't really know the value of their afterbirth. So people can capitalize on that, whether it be through selling the placenta for stem cell research or beauty care products, whatever it is. I feel like the medical or mainstream medical version of birth itself is a major cash cow because they're selling the afterbirth. They're inclined to do C-sections, and then it's just pretty much a built-in collective trauma in the system, and it kind of validates a sick standard. But it's there for like several reasons, but that is definitely a sick societal norm that we got going on as far as an institutional
What
childbirth.
do you think the proper method of giving birth is?
Well, I think the whole process from conception to birth has to transform. It's hard to like isolate one part of it, but because if conception is not done right, then that's going to shape the pregnancy. It's going to be a different experience altogether, and then that's going to create a different kind of birth style. Depending on if you're stressed in different trimesters, the woman, you're going to have a different kind of birth. Your labor is going to be different. If you're with a man that you're not really supposed to be with, all of that is going to affect your whole process. So I think birth, to isolate one part, so we focus on the end. Yeah, the woman should be in a darker room, like or a green, like a green colored room, not in a bright room with artificial lighting, LEDs, light that's not full spectrum. If you're gonna have light or be in light, you should be in natural light, more full spectrum light. And you would like to be in a darker green room, or like dark green, dark purple, something like that. You don't want to be in fluorescent lighting. That's for the setting. You'd only want to be around intimate family. And the man, husband, or the father, what have you, he should be the one catching the child. So the woman should either be in like a squatting position or like bent over, standing bent over. That would be more ideal than being in stirrups or squatting on a bed. I've seen some more recent adjustments to childbirth in the medical industry. They have the woman like squatting on the bed, but it's not the same. The pressure is not the same as having her feet on the ground and having that squatting pressure from the heel of the foot. So I think that's the formation and the location. That's how it should be. The conception needs to be really secure. You don't really want to be forcing the body to do anything it doesn't want to do, and you want to be completely sober. And the body needs to be completely on board. Like you want to really track the ovulation, and then the woman should be actively engaging with the child and doing different positions to flip the child so they know if the baby's breached well before, if the baby's upside down. A woman can feel it if the baby's head is up because you can feel the skull on the bottom of the ribs. So the woman needs to, throughout pregnancy, know how to flip the baby, change positions to flip the baby. And that all I feel like is lost. So then by the time they go into labor, if the baby's not in the right position, then yeah, you might have birth complications, and a lot of that is just emotional. Like you're not paying attention, the baby feels that you're not paying attention, and you haven't done your due diligence. So there's a resistance there, resistance in the body, resistance in the child. So then you have the water breaking, and the child doesn't want to come out, and then they do a C-section. So much of that is just emotional and just negligence throughout the creative process. So that part of it is on the parents as well as not doing it in a hospital, doing it around family, like as far as having the baby, like bringing them into the world physically. There's a lot that goes into conception. If you do it the right way, then the trajectory is better on the whole gestation and pregnancy period, and the birth itself will be a lot different. So I think a lot of that is just neglected, and then nobody talks really about it. If you're going to go to a doctor about it, a lot of times they're not going to really, you might get some suggestions, but it's not like that. They're not telling you how to conceive. It's not like people are telling you how to conceive. They're just saying like, oh, you should just have sex with your partner at some point during ovulation. The whole process is kind of fragmented. So that's where we get middlemen. It's almost like if you had another person having sex with your wife for you, or another person in a room telling you what to do. This is innate. Having a baby and producing a child, like that's innate. All the instructions are inside of you. It's just a lot of stuff has just been deactivated. When you're getting to the other end of the spectrum where it comes time for the child to come through the canal, why would you have a stranger in there? Why would you have somebody that you don't really know? Like, you don't know their family. You don't really know each other's pedigree like that. It's all just like assembly line. So I think there's a lot of disrespect, a lot of negligence, and then the child feels that, and the body is feeling that. The body's keeping all the score. So yeah, that's kind of where I think pregnancy is at this point, and it's a shame. People are in a vulnerable place because they're prone to unconscious sensuality.
Do you think women should be standing up when they're giving birth?
Either standing up and bent over or squatting. And the man should catch the child. He should be there he should be the first person to catch the child. That would be the most ideal way.
For the bonding experience with the father? Is that why?
Yeah, he should catch the child, and then hand the child to the mother smoothly. And then the child would go right to the teat. That would be ideal. You wouldn't want to have a C-section, man. If you watch a C-section, it's just the same things. Like if people watch C-sections and then watch circumcision, stuff like that, like these birth traumas, then I think they would understand how awful it is for the child. You see the baby is in immense distress. So the C-section, they cut the baby out. The mother, a lot of times, they're in like a drug state. And then they cut the baby out. They clamp and cut the cord almost instantly in C-sections from the ones I've seen. And then got a stranger just touching your child and wiping the kid off. If the mom's drugged, she might even get the kid immediately. And it creates a massive amount of separation, like emotionally within the child themselves. I feel like there's a big disconnect because of that void in the very beginning of their life. Their first breath they took was in distress. They didn't feel welcome. So I think it's like if you were to go into any place new and then somebody comes in there and you get violated physically or you get your genitals mutilated, as soon as you arrive, then you're going to have preconceived notions and triggers that you're going to probably carry with for the rest of your life when you're starting something new or when you're finishing things as well. Because if you have a C-section, you didn't really finish being born. I think it kind of can plague a person because the first thing they've ever done in their life was incomplete. So that pattern a lot of times is prone to persisting in everything they do.
You're saying that if a baby is extracted from the mother through a C-section, then they feel like being born was incomplete for them, and perhaps they'll have trouble completing other things that they do.
Yeah, they won't finish things or they'll get other people to do it. They'll have like a high dependency on other people to complete things. So, they won't make ends meet in that way. There's so many disconnects. You think about the layers of disconnects of where we're at, whether it be the breakage of like the family structure where like fathers and sons are disconnected over generations, and you have a lot of disconnect there to where now people don't have land, they don't produce their own food, they don't control their own sewage, like all of that's just all a disconnect. You're not completing these processes, you're not growing the food that you eat, and you're not disposing of it on your own. All of this is now separated from you, and this all stemming from some sort of separations in the creative process throughout generations. We've gone generations of a lot of disconnects and separations to where now you defecate, you flush the toilet, it goes wherever. You buy food from random places. You don't know who grew it or where it came from. You eat it. And there's just a lot of separation between things. Like people have sex for pleasure. So there's just like a separation between the satiation that comes from the creative process and respecting it and the person that just wants one thing. It's like no different than a person that's like, I'm eating for pleasure or just the sweetness or just the saltiness, just the texture. I'm not eating for just holistic nutrition. So it's like the same thing. Like, you're creating to experience yourself, experience creation, experience the creator. Both this virtuous act of bestowing an opportunity of life to someone to be a part of that. So like all these different things I feel like are disconnects. So, you just do that for generations where people are not completing things, and so the father didn't pass it down to the son, like how to be with a woman, how to conceive correctly. The mother's not passing down ovulation, tips or whatever, like as far as how to track it and when to know what's going on within them. Like those things are not passed down. Then you have like generations of men being circumcised. So then it's already like a disconnect in emotions. So it's a lot of dissociation going on. So yeah, then you have a child that they didn't complete the birthing process. It makes things just incomplete. I think it puts people in a place where they're like, I don't want to build a whole car. I just want to be a part of the assembly line that builds the doors or whatever. They've been to be that way by not having a complete birth process or being separated from themselves through the trauma of circumcision and or improper birth. So it created like a certain nature of society because it created a person that they don't do things completely. You know, they don't build their own house. People are just not there because there's so many disconnects in the creative process that that's all been neglected. I feel like that's all kind of been turned off in the coding. And so now people are just not living a complete life. They're just like, I'll rent or I'll be with this person for pleasure. Or, yeah, so I'll get a person pregnant, then we'll break up. Then, you know, we'll get married and we'll get divorced. So many things are just going on. They're just because it's just a lack of completion because the creative process was left undone. And then I don't think people even realize that they need to finish so that they can actually feel like their whole self.
Do you think that the hospital's birthing process is intended to disrupt the mother to child bond?
Yep, disrupt the mother to child bond, create separation between the parents and the child. Because, like I said, the father should be catching the kid, not some random person. And so I think it creates a lot of distrust between the child and the parents. It's just going to be like inherent because the child's like, you left me out to dry with these strangers that don't really care about me. So I think that kind of festers in there at some level. And then it comes out like in unconscious habits, you know, self-destructive habits. It just like kind of contributes to those self-destructive habits because it's almost like a tacit belief system forms around the neglect that you experience as far as how people treat you or how you should be treated. That kind of unfolds. I think you start to mistreat yourself. So on a personal level, I think it's like a disconnect between the individual for sure. And, you know, also between the family unit of the mother and the child and the father as well.
Why do you think the birthing procedure is structured that way?
I think it's more so you just being treated like an animal. I think it kind of just comes from this place where we're kind of like in a human stock state where we're just farm animals. We might be getting treated worse than animals in some regards, you know, because animals are still like allowed to eat the baby's placenta. Like, you know, dogs, they eat the baby's placenta like instantly. So that kind of stuff, in some regards, animals they have it better. So I think we just are just treated worse than cattle. It instills a certain mindset in people, I think, too, as well. You know, if you've been treated that way, then I think you might be more inclined to treat yourself that way. Initially, a child is, you know, they've been breathing through the placenta the whole time while they were in the womb. So upon exiting the vaginal canal, they still have a bunch of amniotic fluid in their lungs. They've been breathing through this placenta the whole time. So they have to go through the process of getting that fluid out, you know, coughing that fluid out or whatever, and then their lungs can fully breathe and they can adjust to breathing air instead of breathing through the placenta itself. So that process in itself, when you cut the cord before that fluid is released from the lungs of the child, then the child is pretty much being asphyxiated by the amniotic fluid. And that's why you get a lot of crying and hysteria from children where it shouldn't be. You know, children can make noises or they can feel discomfort from the temperature change, but they shouldn't be in a hysterical state. A lot of that is because they simply can't breathe. On top of the fact that they can't breathe, 30% of the blood of the baby is in the placenta. So then when you cut it, that blood is no longer circulated through the system. So the baby's operating at 70%. Blood that would have been allocated to the brain and to the lungs, you know, in circulation is now missing. So the baby basically just hemorrhaged a bunch of blood and can't breathe. So this is a very traumatic state. It's like going right into like deep anemia. You have your placenta, you're breathing, you're doing okay. You have all your blood cycling from your body into the placenta and back. And then you lose a 30% amount of your blood and you can't breathe. Your organs can't really function. You're basically anemic. And now the body is more so like focused on trying to just generate blood so that it can stabilize and be in some sort of homeostasis. It's just like you know, you're coming into a place, you've been traumatized, your nerves are more shot now, you can't breathe, your brain and lungs are not developing correctly. And then it's a massive temperature change on top of all of that. You know, you're going from the womb to open air. It's a lot on a child, more than it should be. It's already a big event for them to have to go through all of that. I think it just has crazy ramifications throughout your life.
Hey guys, it's me, Pods. I'm briefly interrupting this interview to let you know about the Pods e-commerce program. It is vital to keeping the Prevail over the System channel alive. Go and join us on our Discord to learn more. And best of all, it's free to partake in the Pods e-commerce program, and we don't need any of your information whatsoever. This helps us keep the interviews coming along with other Intactivist content to empower, teach, and update Intactivist with very important information, as well as being the voice for the Intactivist public. Thank you all so much. Okay, now back to the interview.
If someone is born through natural birth and the umbilical cord and placenta stay attached until it naturally falls off, that's called a lotus birth. What will it do for that person? What would the result be?
So if you were to be afforded your 30% of your blood, so where you could have 100% of your blood as an infant and have a lotus birth, then your brain and your lungs, all of that's going to develop a lot better, and you're going to have a greater sense of calm. Your nervous system won't be taxed because your circulation is just better. This is your start. This is the first day on the job, basically.
Tell us, what do you think about the afterbirth treatment?
The afterbirth, capitalizing on women's ignorance and men's ignorance as far as like the value of the placenta. The placenta is mostly made by the genetics of the man. I feel like it's almost from the man himself. So men need to know about it as well. It's not like it's just a woman, it's a two-way street in that respect. So you're giving up all these stem cells and these genetics from the man and, also from the woman a little bit too. Well, and you're allowing people to do whatever they want with this, with these genetics, with their stem cells. They can take these things and make beauty products or make supplements. Who knows? It's just like a major market because they're capitalizing on people's ignorance. And it's like nothing in life is ever really wasted. Like parasites and different things are going to consume what you forfeit. So you should take a holistic approach to things and utilize, everything that you've been given. You have this placenta. The afterbirth is supposed to be a process, like a natural process until it falls off the child. And then some people consume the placenta. I'm not going to tell people what to do, but I feel like whether you throw it away or consume it, that's better than letting the medical industry have it for whatever they want to do with it. Who knows what they'll do with that genetic material. So it's incredibly valuable. And like anything, it would keep you ignorant to that and, not want you to know your value and what you're offering or giving up here.
Do you know what the medical and cosmetic industry does with the severed foreskin after the boy's been circumcised?
I've heard they use it in skincare products the most of. They probably use it for other things as well. I mean, who knows at this point what that could be used for? But I think, yeah, if they're using it for skincare products, it probably have multiple uses. I don't think it would just stop at skin. Yep, that's another thing that people are just giving up, forfeiting, and it's a shame where we're at with that, but that's where we're at.
Do you think that people from birth, many other factors after in our society, condition us to think that we just need to fit into a place and do one job like a robot in a factory?
Yeah, I think so. I think that since you've been separated from yourself through this trauma, this dissociation that comes from the trauma, it's just like in the movie Split, right? In the movie Split, the guy, he develops a bunch of personalities to cope with his traumas. He was abused by people in his youth, and these personalities were created. Like the one personality was he would be really clean. He was a neat freak. He was OCD about being clean because he would be beat by, I think it was a babysitter or something like that. So he was just so afraid of that this personality, this program took over to where he would just be so clean just to try to not experience that trauma. And so that's what happens with everybody that's going through these birth traumas, is that your body is trying to cope with this pain, this trauma that it can't really process. When you're going through that kind of trauma, it puts you in a fight or flight state. So it makes the baby's breath more shallow than it would be. Babies naturally breathe from the belly. Even when they go through the traumas, they still breathe from the belly. But that creates a lot of tension and dissociation in the system. So they don't actually really find that the rhythm that they would have found as far as breathing is concerned. So then their nervous system is thrown off. And so they are in a state of dissociation from all of this. And they develop these personalities. And a personality is a limited thing. It's not like being your whole self. Personality will tell you like, oh, I'm not good at math. I just never been good at math. And so you just live in this false identity that's not good at math, and it just has a limitation to it. Whereas the whole self is like, look, maybe I need to apply myself or whatever to realize something, but there's no limitation in that respect. I either got to work with others or advance on my own, but there's no limitation to what I can't be a part of or what I can't accomplish. But the personality has limitations because it's almost like a separate entity, like a sub-creation that is there, try to buffer you from your trauma. So if you continually identify with that personality, it grows almost like a chia pet or something from birth. The trauma happens, the personality starts to develop early in the child from that to try to cope with this trauma, this pain, to dissociate from it as a buffer, as like a protection mechanism. And then it just continues to grow inside the child like a parasite throughout their life. And so it has this limited scope of who they can be, what they are, how strong they are, how powerful they are. And then they come into, adulthood or whatever. And this personality has now become strong and almost self-actualized where it doesn't want to die. So it keeps the person in a limited state and have bad habits just so that the person will never realize a greater sense of identity beyond the personality. And the personality can kind of like honeypot all the energy and focus. So then you stay in these limited states of just like euphoria and pain loops, because that's the only way a parasite or personality can really thrive. If you're in this loop of pain and euphoria, distraction, pain and euphoria, if you were actually in a calm nervous system state consistently, then your true self is going to come to the surface and you're going to be like, oh man, why was I identifying with this stuff that was not my whole self? So then, you're going to fully inhabit your body. Like at some point, you're not really fully inhabiting your body as you dissociate from these traumas. So the personality is kind of working to stay alive, to keep a person from really fully inhabiting themselves. And, so you're going to create habits. These habits draw on your energy. And then you're going to be in a state of like, I need this type of food or this much food. I need this habit of my sanity to stay in this identity. I need to smoke. I need to drink. I need to have coffee. I need to support these habits. So I need a job. And since I can't be my whole self at this job, it'll keep me in my personality, or you'll just create another personality off of the last one that's for your work personality. So that's like a pet of your pet in a sense. That's just creating compartmentalization in a person to where they're so separated and fragmented within themselves. It's like Severance. It's really just like the show Severance in a lot of ways. So it's a lot of amnesia because trauma creates a lot of amnesia. So people are like severed from themselves, from their so-called past lives or whatever, because there's this massive block of birth trauma and circumcision and all of that. Then it gets reinforced by like poor nutritional, like cellular traumas basically, and it compounds. And then you get like a fully congealed parasite, fully congealed personality that has pretty much grown and taken over the body. And now you can to fuel that. You're eating a certain way. You're going to work so that you can get the food and the drugs to stay in this person, to continue to worship or prop up this personality. And a lot of that is from the birth trauma. A lot of that stems from that. A lot of the habits and emotional patterns stem from that. So that's definitely contributing to a person going to a job and doing like one thing, like, oh, I just work on a forklift here or whatever, or I do this. They don't do anything holistic. A lot of people are not like masters of something. And then, working with other masters and, just working to have like complete self-mastery. It's not like people build their house, have a natural birth, grow their own food, build a car. That type of stuff is just not happening. People are not in that state. They're in a state of separation within themselves. So it just bleeds into the family. Separation between mother and father, and then the children, separation between them and the mother and the father. And then it just continues generation after generation. And it's just now people are just basically orphans. They're separated from themselves.
That was the premiere interview of Tao. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. I'm going to put all of his links down in the description so you can go ahead and follow and support him if you want. Make sure you subscribe to POTS so you don't miss our other intactivist interviews when they come out once a week. And we also have other intactivist content we release every single week as well. Please share and like this video to get this out to more people. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Bye!